Welcome to Watch Diary. My name is Ryan Snelling. I'm joined by Brando Hall. Brando, how are you today?
Yeah. I'm better. So I think last week we talked about how my air conditioning was out.
Yeah.
It's on.
I'm so glad.
The guy came today, so it's a delicious Kentucky 69 degrees in my house.
Do you need to get a new mattress?
Why? Sweating?
Yeah, because it's so porous. You know, mattresses, the way that they deteriorate over time, it's incredible. The amount of toxins and bugs and creepy crawlies and, you know, you have no air conditioning at Brando Hall's house. I mean, you've aged that mattress 20 years.
We just actually got it recently, but here's a true story. I have always hated top sheets. The top sheet sucks. No one likes the top sheet. If you say you like the top sheet, you're a liar. It feels better if your comforter is quality to sleep with just the comforter.
This is a movement that I recognize and follow. We also have Eric Mulder on board. He has spoken out against the top sheet. I couldn't agree with you more. And it's one of those like generational things. Like, have you heard the idea that like my generation and your generation and even the generation below ours is going to just completely kibosh the napkin?
What do you like, napkin as in at
like,
restaurants?
The napkin just got completely replaced by the paper towel.
Oh, 1,000%.
Like we're just gonna destroy the napkin industry completely here.
If you hand me a napkin at dinner,
yeah,
A, you're hoity-toity,
right,
and B, I'm throwing it immediately on the floor.
Hoity-toity. And the thing is, you start to recognize how flawed the napkin is when you go so long using the paper towel. Like when you ask for a napkin at a fast food restaurant, I mean, it is so small, first of all, to where you have to take basically a huge stack to accomplish anything. And
Wait,
then at that point, you're just wasting it.
I thought you were talking about the napkin as in like the cloth napkins.
Well,
you're talking.
You remember like 40 seconds ago when I said we introduced the paper towel and then that completely kiboshed?
No, because we have paper napkins too.
Okay, what I'm saying is the paper towel has been adopted by us previous napkin users. So
no, because if I go to McDonald's and they hand me paper towels, I'm gonna freak out.
I don't agree at all. How about when you're at home? Do you use a paper towel to wash your hands or do you use a napkin?
If I'm at my home and I need to dry my hands after washing them, I use a hand towel.
Okay, fair enough. So at dinner, what do you give your kids to wipe your hands? Do you give them a wet paper towel or do you give them a stack of napkins?
I give them a paper towel if they get anything.
Okay, well,
Here
there you go.
at the Hall House, we just wipe our hands on whatever.
See, what you have to do, and this you can't help it. This is in your DNA, but instinctively you always want to go against me. But what we just found is that you actually agree with me. You understand what I'm saying now. The paper towel has usurped the napkin.
Yeah, no one buys napkins for their house.
Perfect. Thank you. That's exactly what I'm saying.
At fast food places, don't hand me a paper towel. I'll lose it.
Yeah. Okay.
Like, now, back to the mattress story. I went, I'm going to say 10 years. Same mattress, futon mattress. No sheet whatsoever. And ask me how many times did I wash the futon mattress cover?
You did.
Never. Isn't that disgusting?
Yeah. It is.
I think that's why I have diabetes.
It might
be.
It
probably plays a pivotal role.
Well, that and a lot of things, but
that's right.
But let's go back. An initial point. The top sheet is pointless. And again, there's this generational divide. Because I remember growing up and asking mom that question, what is this? Or she'd like make my bed, up until I was 24. She'd make my bed. And
did she really?
No. And
Yes, she did. Yes, she did.
I would just keep the top sheet in my closet. She thought it was the weirdest thing. I never understood it. Also, another thing, I think I'm gonna lose you here. This is where I'm gonna lose you. For the longest time, I didn't understand why I needed a jacket to go places.
You mean? I think I get that because
Yeah.
when you're in school and that's when people can tell you, like, shame you into taking a jacket.
Yeah.
As soon as I get there, I'm taking it off.
Right.
So I'm really only going from the car to inside where I'm going. Don't need the jacket.
That's exactly my point growing up. I mean,
Yeah, we're the same.
I've thought this way since I was a kid. I've never understood it. I'd wear a hoodie. I'm already wearing something, like maybe because the weather's chilly or cold. But am I going to leave my house, drive to Walmart, and take a jacket to wear a jacket from the time I walk out of the car to enter the building? I never really saw the economics of that. And whenever I'd show up at my Nana's house, my beautiful Nana pictured in your picture in the back there.
That's right.
I go to my Nana's house. Like right now, she's asking Uncle Stu, doesn't Ryan need a jacket? I mean, that's just something she always asks me when we go to like family gatherings. And I'm like, why do I need a jacket? Just so you have a purpose for your coat closet? Like, what's the deal here?
Coat closets, also bullshit.
You know what? She's got an old house. She legitimately has a coat closet, and it's sitting right by her front door. Isn't that incredible?
We have one too.
Really?
But the only thing in there is like Christmas decorations, Halloween decorations, and like a ring light and a camera tripod. That's it.
Yeah, and let me guess, they're broken because you can't have any podcast equipment that works.
The tripod works, but you know what? Why don't you shut your mouth? Okay?
Well, that's because never mind. I'm not gonna go there.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say that's just something that you and Lulu probably use, so it's kept in better shape. But anyway,
that's right. Amen. 1,000%.
Brando, I'm not gonna lie.
David Cronenberg directs our nightlife movies.
I wish. Brando, I have to admit to you and the audience that this is probably the least prepared I've ever been on a podcast since the name Watch Diary.
And that's saying something.
And I had a responsibility because I'm actually reviewing a movie today. I'm going to tell you about it. We're going to talk Barbarian. We're going to talk about the episode 3 of Rings of Power. And that's kind of it. I just figured we kind of shoot the shit until Zoom kicks us off here. But yeah, I really I've had a stressful week.
Okay.
And it's just been goofy.
Did your air conditioning go out?
No.
Do you have a family?
No.
So how stressful can it be? You know what? Did your ketchup packets not have enough ketchup for all your fries? Like, what happened?
I ordered DoorDash first watch, and they forgot my entire order of potatoes.
I knew it. I knew it.
But because the Dasher isn't responsible, I text them like, hey, they just kind of forgot the potatoes. And of course, the DoorDash driver's like, what do you want me to do, bro? Like, you're not even my assignment anymore. They have no obligation to do anything for me after they drop off because they've already moved on to their next job. So I just...
DoorDash as a whole is bullshit.
You think so?
The prices... Okay, so I get it if you are a homebound person or on house arrest. But any other reason, you should go to the store. Because it's so expensive. Like you'll get one combo. Let's say you're DoorDashing Wendy's and you want that spicy chicken sandwich, which if you order anything else at Wendy's, your house stinks.
Mm.
So you get the spicy chicken sandwich, maybe the chili. Okay, so you get one extra.
Chili?
The chili at Wendy's is legit.
I mean, yeah, but don't we have mutual friends that have worked at Wendy's and they just told
I've
us
worked at Wendy's.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, it's fine.
Was it you that used to tell stories about people like doing blow in the bathrooms
that was Jimmy John's.
In the cooler or whatever? Anyway.
That was Jimmy John's.
No. Okay.
No, and that was smoking weed in the cooler I never saw anybody do blow at Jimmy John's. However, I know they were doing it. Anyway, no, it's just leftover or burnt hamburger patties, but it's in the chili. You don't taste it. You still want the meat. It's fine. So I usually do that instead of fries. Okay. So, but if you order that from DoorDash, it'll ring up, they inflate their prices a little bit. So it'll be like $13 for one combo.
Right.
But then when you go to pay for it, it's like $30, $24, and that's before tip.
Yeah, I do the DoorDash pass or whatever, so I just pay $10 a month to eliminate it, and I usually do it enough to where it does make sense, but if not, I at least break even, so it is a better deal, I guess.
So hold on, you're a single person.
Yeah.
You have a decent car.
It's not a great car. It's
a fine car. It's a fine vehicle, American made.
Not American made, but
and then you pay for DoorDash. How many times a month do you DoorDash? Be honest.
At least once a week.
Once a week.
Maybe twice a week.
Twice a week. So that's at most, let's say at least 8 times a month.
Yeah, I'd say, yeah. I would say 5 or 6 times a month.
Okay. Light your wallet on fire because you don't deserve it. That's ridiculous, Ryan.
Well, here,
go to the store.
Here, let me tell you this. So, just so everybody knows, I work at a place that gets me free food. So, if I'm working, I'm not paying anything for my meals. So, in a way, I don't think I'm in a situation where I'm paying way more than I normally should, if that makes sense. Because every time I DoorDash, it's definitely offset because think about it. I work 5 days a week and a lot of the time my main meal is free. So that definitely helps out a lot. It's not like I'm just constantly eating everything I want all the time. And when I have to snack at home, it's a lot of chips and salsa. It's grapes. It's literally PB&J, especially when I was working out. I mean, just a ton of peanut butter sandwiches and stuff. So it's not 5 or 6.
How much do you make a month?
How much did this house cost?
Yeah. How much do you make a month?
I'm not answering that.
I want to go into your subscriptions and DoorDash and see what percentage
How about this?
Ryan Snelling's income.
If you want to jump off the food category and just go overall, let's talk about Ryan's finances. Do I spend way more than I make? 100%.
Yeah, good. You're American.
Yeah. I'm an American and I'm in debt and I stress about it all the time, but it's all good.
Heck yeah. I'll tell you, I'll just say it. We are in, get ready,
no debt.
$15,000 of credit card debt. Now, here's what's good about this is when I die young, I won't care. Okay?
Right.
Because the BDs is going to take away the care from the credit card debt. No, we actually got out of credit card debt completely when we sold our house in Missouri.
Oh, nice.
But then, since then, we've racked up $15,000 of credit card debt, mostly medical and so it's fine. We had a kid that didn't help. But anyway, so credit card debt's real. Don't get a credit card, kids, because we pay $400 a month in credit card bills, and it never goes down. We will be paying that credit card bills until Daddy Biden does something to help us.
I think I'm probably in at least that same amount of debt.
Good.
And I make less money than your joint marriage. And yeah.
You make more than my wife makes.
I definitely make more than your wife makes, but I definitely don't make more than you two.
No, there's no way. Well, there's no way you make more than me.
100%. There's no way. There isn't.
No, maybe. I don't know.
There's no way.
Anyway, all that to say is credit card debt is slowly taking years off my life.
Yeah.
So I feel you. So that's why we don't have Dash Pass.
It's weird though, because here's what I think about. The only time it really ever bothers me is because my spending habits, it's almost like I give myself just what I want and that makes me happy. Like a PS5. Or I justify it with like I use this thing every day, so eventually it's going to be worth it. So I'm kind of just like I feel like I don't know. This is probably
like that Colin Farrell Blu-ray.
That's right. I've got more Blu-rays to show you.
Heck
But it's the fact that basically what I'm ignoring and not planning for is the stuff that life hits you with. Like, there's no way I'm prepared for my car to have another issue right now. Or the fact that, like, I was going to tell you this story because I thought you'd get a kick out of it. But my computer, I thought was toast. And I had to call a computer repair guy yesterday. $200 just gone. And
what was wrong?
So I posted a picture of it on Instagram. So
yeah, I saw it.
I'm going to make an announcement on this podcast about something that's coming up. But basically, the day that I plan to do basically like a ton of content creation and a lot of work was going to go into it, and I desperately needed my computer to work. The day that I mentally decided to prepare for all of that was the day that I started smelling something burning in my room. And what it smelled like is it smelled like, you know how when you turn your heater on in your house for the first time in the winter and you just like get all like the burnt dust and stuff and your house stinks for the first couple of days when the heater's on?
Yeah.
That's what it smelled like. But obviously my heater's not on because it's 100 degrees outside. And it would just be randomly faint. And I'm like, this is so weird. And part of me was like, well, maybe it's my fan. Maybe I just need to clean my fan off. And so it was like this off and on thing over the past couple of weeks. But it was like a couple of days ago when I pinpointed it, and it was my computer. So it was like 8 o'clock at night 2 nights ago. And I looked up a computer repair service here in Tucson, called them, made an appointment. He called me back at like 8:30 or 9 at night and was like, hey, it's either basically we come tomorrow morning, which I had work. It was we either come tomorrow morning or we can't get there until the 20th. And I was like, okay, well, let's just book tomorrow and I'll figure out my work schedule. So that was stressful. And because it was late and I don't like to change my work schedule. And so anyway, the guy comes in, and this is the part that I think you'll like a lot. So he looks exactly the way that you would think an IT computer guy would look. He comes in, he's got his, brown scraggly hair down to his shoulders, and part of it's in a ponytail and glasses, and he's sort of a big guy, hairy, sweaty. Hell of a nice guy.
Hell yeah.
So he comes in, and immediately I feel judged because, if we want to, for the sake of being stereotypical, of course, he's probably just like a geeky, sweaty little nerd, and I'm sure that he plays D&D and stuff like that. So, which is cool. So he comes in, he happens to knock on the door while I'm watching She-Hulk episode 4. So I pause it, and I know that he walked in and probably judged me for watching She-Hulk because I imagine he's somebody that comments on the internet that it's too woke for him and it sucks and blah blah blah. That's just me projecting. I don't actually know this. So
sure.
Immediately I feel judged when he walks in, and we kind of like look each other up and down, and he goes, "Ryan?" And I said, "Alex?" He's like, "Yeah, nice to meet you." So he comes in, and I literally just start immediately talking to him because it's like one of those things where like I don't know what the process of this is because I just let you into my apartment and we're just going. So immediately I'm just like, we walk into my bedroom, and guess the first question I ask him is,
"Would you like something to drink?"
No. I said, let me ask you this: does my room smell?
What do you say?
He's like, you know what? I don't think I ever really paid attention. And then I said, well, it must just be lingering in my nose because I feel like I can smell it in my room, this thing burning. And he goes, huh, okay. And so I'm immediately like, so blah, blah, blah. I figured this out and I smelt it and blah, blah, blah. And I thought it was coming from here, blah, 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 blah. And he lets me go for a couple of minutes. And then finally he goes, well, first I need to go over some stuff with you and I need you to sign something. So he completely disregarded everything that I said because I should.
Oh, yeah.
It's like when you go to Subway for the first time and you like tell them everything that you need, and it's like, no, there's an order to this. I will ask you. That's what it was like.
Did he ask to vape in your house?
No, he didn't.
He vapes though. 1,000% he vapes.
Of course he did. He kept forgetting things in his truck. So he kept having to go back to his truck, and that's when he hit the vape, 100%. So anyway,
Do you live on the first floor?
I don't. I live on the second floor. So we're in my bedroom, this room that I'm in right now. I'm sitting on my bed, and he's over here off screen. He's on the floor. He's got my computer cradled in his lap. And, you know, a lot of the time we spent together, the hour and a half I spent with this man, it was getting very, very close to him and smelling my computer. So he had it in his lap, and he'd be like, all right, now come smell it. So I'd smell my computer. Because it was us trying to...
So wait.
Yeah.
So the computer's in his lap.
That's right.
And he asks you...
Yeah.
Hey, what are you wearing?
Right. Oh, what am I
wearing?
wearing?
No, I'm asking you. Yeah.
I'm wearing, like, some I'm wearing now. T-shirt and shorts.
Ball shorts?
No.
Okay. How much leg are you exposing? Okay, so he can see those thighs.
Yeah.
So he sees those thighs, and then he asks you to bend over his lap and smell.
Well, you completely changed the story.
No, you said the computer was in his lap.
But he's sitting on the floor, so yes, I had to kind of lean in.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had to
Did he wink at you?
No. So, but basically it was a lot of smelling to try to pinpoint where this was coming from. And finally we settled on the processor. So he looks at the processor, and basically there's like this thermal gel, like literally supposed to be a gel there.
Yeah.
And so basically what had happened was it basically cooked it. And the gel completely fried and is stuck to my chip. So it's just overheating, and the smell was this cooking gel. And I sent it to my buddy Ryan that you know from back home who works in computers, and he said, Snelling, I literally have never heard or seen of that happening. So it was just I have these instances in my life where the craziest stuff happens in the least opportune time.
Was it thermal paste?
Yes, it was. So here's what happens. It's about 9:30 a.m. when we find this out. And he's like, okay, well, it just happened to be the thing that he just ran out of. He's like, I don't have any thermal gel, but I can go get some. And I was like, okay.
That's a lie.
So then he says, I can go find the nearest Best Buy. And then we look it up, and he goes, oh, well, the nearest Best Buy isn't open until 10. So I'm just looking at him, and he's like, well, here's the thing. I'd be on the clock, but I have to wait till 10. And I'm just like, okay, man. And then he kind of saw that I was disappointed, and he goes, wait a minute. I could call my competitor and just see if I could get some from them. And I was like, you can do that? And he's like, yeah, I can try. And then he goes, do you know why? I'm not going to say the real name of this, but I'm just going to, for the sake of the story. He goes, do you want to know why they're our competitor? And in my head, I'm just like, because they're just obviously another computer repair company. And he goes, because they have the same name as us. And I was like, what? And he goes, yeah, they named their business We Compare Computers 2. And I was like, what? And I said, they had named themselves the same and he said, yes. And I was thinking in my head, I was like, this is an NBC workplace comedy. That this guy right now is calling a rival company with the exact same name in the same city. And I was like, I would love to be on the other side of that phone just to hear, they look at the caller ID and they're like, oh shit, it's blah, 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 Colin, blah, 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 blah. He's going to ask for thermal gel. All that. I just thought that was so funny to me. But he ended up getting it from his competitor, so we didn't have to wait. And so anyway, long story short, I'm obviously on my computer now and it's all good.
Were you going to ask him to watch She-Hulk with you if he had to wait?
I don't
What
know
would you have done?
I don't know. I don't know.
Was he getting paid hourly?
Yeah.
How? So that was $100 an hour?
It was like 100. I'm trying to think of what he said. I paid him like $180 for an hour and a half work. So I think it was 150 an hour. So it was something like that. It was like 150
Incredible.
for the 150 for the first hour, and then it was like $1 amount per every 15 minutes. So like the clock was ticking. Like,
yeah.
The other thing you would
And he
have
spent a lot of time asking you to smell stuff.
That's right. And so another thing you would have gotten a kick out of is when he finally was like, I think it's ready to go. And so he was like, okay, let's boot up your computer. So we booted my computer up, and once like my welcome window screen comes up and I have to like type in my password to get to my desktop, I immediately think to myself, he's gonna judge me for my desktop wallpaper too.
What was it?
It's a shot of Tom Cruise in Top Gun Maverick. So basically, when the computer's booted up and he's like browsing, he's got the mouse and he's like looking around and checking settings and stuff like that. And I'm watching him watch my desktop of Tom Cruise, and I'm just like, this guy thinks he's got me nailed down. I must come off like the biggest bro fan in pop culture, because I have Tom Cruise and I'm watching She-Hulk. Like, I'm not watching like Criteria, and it's like he must have thought I was the biggest fucking bro because I'm watching a Marvel thing and I've got Tom Cruise on my.
So when you started smelling it, was the computer still working?
Yeah.
So this is how we're different, because I would have spent 15 to 20 minutes looking for a computer desktop background that would have made him laugh. And that would have been my goal while he was there.
I was a little too stressed. I was trying to figure out my work situation because, like I said, I had to have somebody cover me, and then I had to like stay on top of letting them know. And so, yeah, I just had a lot going on in my head.
So like where you work, if you ran out of something and you needed to call a competitor, so with your workplace, you would call like Hardee's. So say you called Hardee's.
Not quite, but okay.
I'm not trying to give away your workplace.
Right.
And you're like, we're out of eggs or chicken tendies or whatever. And then being like, it's our time to shine, boys. We're not giving you nothing. I'm surprised they gave him the thermal paste.
Well, the biggest difference there is that we wouldn't ever call a competitor. We would just call another location of our. Like, that's all I do.
Yeah.
Like, so I did it yesterday. Or we just go to Walmart across the street and get whatever we need.
Interesting.
Yeah. I never have to call a competitor. But that's why this instance was so funny to me. Because I knew he had stories. And I hadn't unlocked them. But I knew. Because he was like, I guess I could call this. This is why they're a competitor. I mean, he has a whole history with this. And I would love to hear some of those stories.
Did you make him laugh at all while he was there?
He definitely laughed. I mean, I pointed out that it was weird I was smelling the computer. I said, he was like, all right, smell this and see if you think it's coming from here. And I would say, this is the weirdest day I've ever had. And he laughed.
I would love, this would be a great show, is to watch strangers interact with you for the first time.
I tell you what, I don't like doing this, but there's some interesting characters I'm working with right now that like you would just lose your shit watching me react.
Yeah.
Like you would love it.
Anyone that's at all outside of normal interacting with you, who's definitely outside of normal, but likes to think they're pretty normal. I love it. Like if someone had an eyebrow ring. Interacting with you would be incredible.
I was telling these stories about how in my life, because I genuinely like love people, and I love people being like my friends group back home. They're freaks. Like all of them are so like Sturgill and Ryan and like Goodman. All these characters. I mean, they're all. Goodman. None of us have anything in common except we're all just weird in our own way. I mean,
Yeah.
we're out of our minds. I hope that when we're older, it's like Larry David reacting to like with Richard Lewis and Funkhauser. Like
Yeah.
I think our friends group is gonna turn into those guys when we're older, and I can't wait. Oh my god, we're just gonna be out of our minds. But the fact that like I'm so open and like willing to be friends with like literally anybody, and to a detriment, because what ends up happening is they often weird me out and disappoint me, and then I have to pull the chute and find my way out of this. I've ghosted more potential friends in my life than like chicks, like just
Oh,
because
sure.
I'm just like, you know what, I don't actually want to be. I was telling a story, and I'll make this very brief because I've been talking a lot. But I was telling a story about how when I got into high school, it was my first time in public schooling. Was freshman year of high school, and so I had already met like a lot of people that went to my high school, but I still had a lot of people to meet. And so there was this one guy. I won't say. I'll just say his name is John, for the sake of the story. So we sit down together, and our lunches, we had the brand of milk Flavo Rich. Are you familiar
Oh
with
yeah. Oh yeah.
so this is when you could spend a little bit extra and get extra milk. This was the beginning of me. Basically, this is what my Dash Pass habit originated as, was extra
Okay.
milk in high school. So I remember sitting down and John was just like, and I was trying to be friends with him. You know, he was the guy that was sitting with me at lunch. I was getting to know him. It was like my first or second day of high school. So he goes, "Oh, you got two milks, huh?" And I open the carton and I go, "Yeah, Flavo Rich, bitch." So,
Wow.
so we had lunch. We had lunch together a couple more times that week, and guess what? Every day that I sat with him and ate lunch, whenever I would go to open my milk, he would say, "Flavo Rich, bitch." And after about the second or third time, I'm like, enough of this. And that's when
Oh wow.
that's when I decided, you know what, I can't be friends with this guy. If
Yeah.
the thing that has most turned him on creatively is the joke Flavo Rich bitch, and nothing else enters his mind, and he can't be funny in his own way, I'm already out. So I ejected myself out of a friendship with John almost immediately. But guess what kept happening, Brando? 4 more years of high
Oh,
school.
that's right.
4 more years of high school with this person. He always has this core memory of Flavo Rich bitch. So we'd be at the complete opposite end of the hallway, complete opposite end, minding our own businesses. He'd like lock eye contact with me, and all of a sudden be like, "Hey, Snelling, Snelling," and I'd look at him. He'd go, "Flavo Rich bitch."
Wow. So that was his personality.
Yeah.
In my head, in my dreams, he murders you, and he's crying over your corpse because he's been in love with you this whole time. And as he's crying, he just goes, "Flavor Rich."
Yeah.
Just one last time.
The Snelling in your picture. I mean, that is one frazzled
That's
man
right.
hearing Flavo Rich bitch one too many times.
That's right.
That's what that is. So anyway, I've been talking a lot. I apologize.
Yeah, you should. 5 minutes left.
I was gonna say I've got an announcement to make. I don't have to make it with you, I don't guess. But we can start. Do you want to start talking Lord of the Rings, or do you want me to tell you about Barbarian? Let's talk Lord of the Rings. That way you get some chatter in. How about that?
That's fine.
All right, guys, just a quick reminder. A great way to support myself and kind of Brando is by joining this 30-day free trial of Audible. Just scan the QR code if you are watching me and us on, well, me, because you're me today. Me on YouTube. Just scan the QR code with your camera on your phone and get you a 30-day free trial of Audible on me. If you're listening in podcast form, you can find the link in the description. It's audibletrial.com/rewatch. Definitely check that out. Pick up a book. And by pick up a book, I mean listen to a book. Anyway, Brando, we watched the third episode of Rings of Power today, and because I'm feeling guilty. You haven't talked. I'm going to let you go first. I want to know what you thought sitting down for this episode and what you thought after this episode.
So I was hoping to watch this episode last night, but of course I didn't get to. I'm not sure if they released at midnight, but I was not awake to view it. So I got up this morning. I took my kids to school. I get a bacon, egg, and cheese sandwich from the best gas station in the world here in Lawrenceburg, Kentucky. And I go home with a coffee, and I sit and I watch. And I'm kind of dreading it, to be honest.
Okay.
We've talked about our problems with the show so far. It's still fine, but it's kind of a sludge getting through. Is the experience that I had so far. A little underwhelmed, beautifully shot, which I don't think comes into play in this episode too much, but it's got a ton of potential. So I sit down to watch this. I thought the episode was fine. There's a little more action, slightly, and we see some of the orcs. I didn't think this episode was as visually stimulating as the other two we've seen. We spend most of our time this episode with Galadriel and the elf that's been captured by the orcs. I don't even know his name.
Arendir, I believe.
Arendal or Arendir, something weird. And, it was I liked the character development in this episode. I thought was better. We're getting to know a little bit more. I hated the time we spent with the Harfoots. But again, I just hate the Harfoots. Don't care about the Harfoots. Couldn't care less about the Harfoots.
Yeah.
So I thought it was fine. That's my overall picture of this episode, was just that, like, it didn't look as good as the other two episodes, I didn't think. This one looks cheaper. Like, if they spend a lot of money, because this whole season cost $1 billion.
Right.
$1 billion. And this episode, I was just like, it's a throwaway Game of Thrones episode. That's how it felt to me. What do you think?
So I think that this is the most involved I've been in an episode of this show, and I wouldn't even say that I was that involved, because, like I said, I don't even feel prepared for this podcast, and this is kind of what happens when one or two people don't end up wanting to do like a weekly recap of the show, because your involvement as a fan, or your just interest in general, has to be at a certain level to want and desire to talk about shows on a weekly basis. And I just don't think I'm like recap ready, if that makes sense. So take that for what you will. I feel like that does kind of explain my attitude towards this. It's like, I don't even feel like I could talk about this. But also, I enjoyed this episode the most because it felt the most balanced in terms of the entertainment, the enjoyment of it. I thought was there. I thought the action was great. I still think it looks gorgeous. I mean, I think it looks wonderful all the time. I'm like you. I don't like the Harfoots. I'm not that interested in it. But I think in terms of, I thought this was just a better writing, and I thought the structure of the episode, it was just something I'm more familiar with. And how do you feel about the people? And maybe you haven't like listened to a lot of podcasts or watched a lot of reviews, but like this idea that in general, people sometimes hesitate to compare certain things to the most obvious choice. Like, for example, the fact that we have House of the Dragon running concurrently, but people, of course, make the comparisons, but also don't want to. Like, the same way that some people think it's unfair to compare, like, MCU and Marvel, or I'm sorry, MCU and DC. Like,
Why is that not fair?
I don't, well, because it's like also still just trying to be its own thing, and it's like, it's not every show has to be Game of Thrones, so what's the point of comparing it to Game of Thrones if it's not trying to be and it has a completely different identity? But I think if we're like talking about things that are just storytelling 101, it's easy to make comparisons, but I don't think if it's like comparing something, like I think we talked about it last week. Like, there's no reason to compare the amount of gore because it's
No,
like,
but that's Game of Thrones is so much more than gore.
oh, of course. But
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of something like superficial instead of like
Yeah.
character development.
Yeah, I think after Game of Thrones was such a pivotal show that you don't get to not compare it
That's
high
true.
fantasy to that anymore.
Yeah.
It's the same way that like when The Dark Knight came out, all other superhero films from there on out have to be answered for against The Dark Knight. They don't even have to be the same tone, but the same level of filmmaking should be, that level of excellence we know is reachable.
Right.
So that doesn't mean Shazam has to feel like The Dark Knight, but it has to stand its own ground.
Right.
Right? So that's how I would describe the differences between Game of Thrones and this show. This show is failing at being. This show is definitely influenced by Game of Thrones, just in the same way that Game of Thrones had to have been influenced by, in some ways, the Lord of the Rings trilogy.
Of course.
Right?
Of course.
So I obviously think it's a safe thing. And to say, like, I know Bezos was hoping that this would be Amazon's, answer to Game of Thrones or their version of Game of Thrones, but PG version, whatever. But I just don't think at this point the writing is as good, one, even though they have so much lore to pull from. Even though they're doing their own thing, they're working with Tolkien's like House Tolkien. And so there's just no reason for it to be this boring so far. That's the word that I would use. I would use a little boring. Not super boring, but a little bit. If you're going to have a runtime of 66 minutes or over an hour, I need a little more. I thought the warg looked good. I thought that whole storyline, but like there was a death in that scene with Arondir or whatever his name is. And it held no weight because no one knew who the hell that character was.
Right.
Right? He's one of the elves that, were also captured by the orcs, and they're all working together. One of them dies, and no one cares. But it affects the lead character, and it wasn't earned. So it's moments like that I think that this show is how it's going to lose its way. Because nobody cared about that side character, and he got his throat slit for drinking water. You got to be careful in these times.
I do want to say that I agree with what you said about the comparisons, especially. I mean, I pretty much agree with every point you made, but going back to the comparison issue. But it's also just like not the only thing I want to do, is compare it to Game of Thrones. But it's also obvious, and I feel like it can't be ignored, like you said. And it just so happens that Game of Thrones is one of the most popular shows ever made. So it's just a coincidence that it's fantasy.
Yeah.
It's just a coincidence that it's airing simultaneously. But I do think that more so, and I think part of the reason why I enjoy this is that this episode reminded me of Game of Thrones. I mean, the fact that it reminded me of the episode when Daenerys arrives in Karth, which I believe is the second season, episode 1, I think. And she's faced with the clashing cultures and being allowed in to this society. Yeah. Like, that's what it reminded me of. But it also reminded me of Game of Thrones, my experience watching season 1, because it does feel dynamic in the sense that we have all different types of characters with different types of stories. I mean, that's what I think House of the Dragon can't do compared to Game of Thrones. You turn on Game of Thrones, you have the Northern culture storyline and cut to the Southern culture storyline. Then you cut to Arya. It's a coming of age story. You cut to here. It's a fanatic story. It's completely different depending on what scene you're in Game of Thrones. You have Jon Snow in the north. Like, it varies wildly. Whereas House of the Dragon isn't dynamic in that way. It's very much about a particular story. It's not trying to be, but It's just different DNA. So the fact that this episode kind of bounced back and forth between all these wildly different stories, I really appreciated it. But it also reminded me of it because I kind of don't know what's going on. And that's kind of why I'm not equipped to do a recap show, because I just don't know enough about Lord of the Rings and Tolkien and like what the show is supposed to be. Because when I left thinking, oh, I enjoyed that episode more than the other two for these reasons, I get online and someone that I won't use his name, but someone that follows me and I follow, and I'm assuming he's a much more diehard fan of Tolkien and Lord of the Rings. He was talking about how bad the episode was, but not in a way that people have been bashing Rings of Power, just like criticizing this particular episode. And the sense that I got from it was that, and maybe you can speak to this a little bit, it felt like episode 3 of Rings of Power, which I believe is supposed to be 5 seasons and is set thousands of years. It seemed like in this episode they were setting up Lord of the Rings like already.
Yeah, we even met Isildur.
Right.
The kid on that boat turns into Isildur, and he's a bad guy. Turns into one of the Nazgul. You know what I mean?
I don't know what you mean.
Okay. So he's the guy that cut the ring of power off Sauron's finger.
Gotcha. Okay, I'm with you now. So basically, I think the idea was that like you have all of this material that you can use, and you reduced it to this, and we're already setting up Lord of the Rings. Like it's like just a Hail Mary out of desperation. Like we can't do our own thing. We've got 5 seasons. As far as I know, I think this show's supposed to be 5 seasons. I can't remember, but it just kind of felt like. It just
There's
felt like
no way.
I don't know.
No, this might be my Guardians of the Galaxy Ryan Snelling take, where you said there's no way the Guardians of the Galaxy 2 can be bad, which I didn't think it was, and you're wrong. But but you thought it was bad. I don't think there's any way this show goes 5 seasons.
Just based on the reception as well?
No, based on the quality. Like the reception, from what I can tell online, is pretty good. I mean, people are, for the most part, are happy with it. There's a few naysayers, and they're correct. But I think Amazon's freaking out. I think if you could go back there, they're like, well, we've got to write this ship. I think they'll start re-editing things. I think they'll they could push things back. I'm not sure. But I think deep down in their heart of hearts, they know we might be in some trouble. Now, I could be totally wrong, because the next few episodes might be bangers, and this was all set up for what's to come. That way we get to know the characters a little bit, even though they've not done a great job of character development. So I could be wrong, and I'm open to it. I'm usually not wrong. But I think I think this goes 2, maybe 3 seasons based right now.
The show that this reminds me of so much is Westworld. I
did not watch season 2 or 3 of Westworld.
But it's the idea that I just feel like it has this kind of like, I don't think Westworld's entertaining. I think it's extremely flawed. I think it's boring. It's mostly characters that I just don't care about at all. But the story is like so high concept that it kind of carries us through. And with every season, there's like an opportunity to kind of like shuffle around and like change what the story is, and I do dynamics and stuff, and I just feel like ultimately I can't believe that it's kind of still on, but I guess enough people watch it that they keep making it, and it's expensive as hell. The same thing with this. I mean, it's a success on most fronts. I mean, it has 25 million global viewers, which was more than House of the Dragon has had, as far as I know, reportedly. So more people are watching this show. It is more family friendly. I think this is considered a success. And Season 2 plans are already underway. They're expected to start filming next month. And by the time this report says, by the time the 5 seasons are wrapped up, it would be the most expensive TV show ever made.
Yeah.
So that's the plan as of now.
I mean, they could right the ship, but to say, based on the first, I don't know how many, 3 episodes of House of the Dragon so far.
Yeah.
In 3 episodes of this, House of the Dragon is a better show.
100%. And
It's
way
not close.
And another way that you compare it is they are both literally prequels that have the advantage of standing on the shoulders of the previous story.
The only difference is that House of the Dragon is based on a book, and this show isn't.
Well, that's the thing. It kind of is.
Well, but they don't have rights to the Silmarillion or like any of that other stuff. They only have Lord of the Rings to go off of.
Yeah, but Fire and Blood isn't a narrative. It tells a story, but it's more like bullet points. It's not like a narrative story the way that the Game of Thrones series are.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's like I don't know. It's a more like summarized like family history kind of thing.
Okay, got ya.
Like it tells you who all the characters are. So like if you read Fire and Blood, you can know what's about to happen in the show. Like you can know what's about to happen with Aegon and Rhaenyra and stuff like that. But like it's not like a beginning, middle, and end narrative story that follows characters, I guess. It's almost like a family history Bible, or it's, I don't know.
Got ya.
I don't know how to explain it.
For me, I think obviously they're different shows. Obviously, Game of Thrones has been in our universe most recently compared to Lord of the Rings, which those Peter Jackson movies that are worth anything came out in what, 2000? When did the first Lord of the Rings movie come out?
2001, I believe.
Okay. So yeah. So and the Hobbit films don't exist. So I guess it's easier to jump back into the world of Game of Thrones because they did such a good job of, even though it was thousands of years before, or however many years before it was, it still feels exactly like Game of Thrones, to where this does not feel like Lord of the Rings to me yet.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like they've set up the whole like Celebrimbor or Celebrimbor that he's about to make the rings. And what's his butt is there with him. What's his name? Mr. Smith from
Elrond.
Elrond is there with him. Elrond Hubbard. And then it's just it hasn't grabbed me in the same way. But I have equal fandoms for Game of Thrones and Lord of the Rings, as a series.
Right.
So I'm still waiting to be drawn in the same way. And I think that is the problem this show continues to have, is they're showing us very pretty things, but I do not care yet so far. Like Gladriel is my least favorite character in the show so far, just because like she has no character development other than she's really tough, which, of course, she is. We know that she doesn't die because she's in the Lord of the Rings films. So we know just enough about her, but, like, we don't know any of the inner workings. We know she has a dead brother, but, like, that hasn't been mentioned in a long time, except for she's, like, real possessive of that sword, that little dagger thing. But, like, other than that, we just know she wants to protect the realm just cause. And right. I guess you could say that the same thing is true about Daemon. The only thing we know is that he's a sneaky little piece of trash that I love, that I can't wait to see when. He's got this jealousy with his brother. I guess there's just more story development that's happened in Hot D as compared to where we are at. 3 episodes in, there's a time skip in this last House of the Dragon episode. But way more has happened so far in House of the Dragon than has happened in this Lord of the Rings series. So, maybe that's what helps, fuel the desire to keep watching House of the Dragon, is because a lot of things can happen in one episode. To where in this episode, I mean, things are still going at a snail's pace.
Right.
And it sounds like I hate it. I don't hate it. I don't hate Rings of Power. Again, this was my favorite episode probably so far.
Same.
It's just I need it to get a fire lit underneath it. And I need to see things start happening that have consequence. And maybe this has all, again, been set up. But I don't think that naked guy, the Starman or whatever, I don't think... I read something that you won't know, like, his intentions this season. So this whole first season... Which I don't... How many episodes is this season supposed to be? Do you know?
I think it's 8.
Okay. So we are almost halfway through this first season. They have got to do something quick. That's what I'll say.
Yeah, it's 8.
So something has to happen next Friday, because that's the halfway point. Now I'm going to watch all of them, and we can recap or talk about them all. But I'm real nervous as to... I think the next 2 episodes will speak volumes of how, this show is going to, the direction it's going to either correct course or stay on the boring, slow course it's on.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with everything you said. I definitely am not hate watching by any means.
No, me neither.
I feel like I am going to watch at least every episode just to see how beautiful it is. Like, yeah. I am attracted to it, but also I do check out like the Harfoot stuff. I kind of check out, and yeah, I'm not really vibing with that either. Anyway, and I'm not compelled by the mystery of that Starman. By the way, like it doesn't even excite me that it could be Gandalf. It doesn't excite me that it could be Sauron. It doesn't. Like the fun speculation that I want to have with this show. For some reason, I just don't feel like not included in, but I just don't. I'm not intrigued by it. I mean, I kind of just don't care whether it's Sauron or Gandalf. It's weird. It's not. Yeah. It's not fun. It's not exciting to me.
Well, I found out they did film this season in New Zealand.
Eric told me that too, and I think what I remembered when I said that it wasn't is that season 2 is not going to be. But basically what I just remember is the way that there's been a ton of fan backlash over the show. I remember the story that they weren't going to use these locations, but I guess I was speaking to season 2 and I just forgot.
Yeah, it's but I can tell you right now it doesn't look like it. Doesn't look like the Peter Jackson films yet. So
But that's the thing though, is I don't need it to. You know what I mean?
I do. I need it to have some similarities.
Some similarities, sure, but it's like, the same way that when Batman Begins came out, I didn't need it to look like Tim Burton's Batman's or anything.
No, but that's different. That's way different. This is... So, if you watched House of the Dragon and the Iron Throne looked totally different, you'd be out.
Well, it does.
It doesn't look totally different.
And I actually wouldn't be out. Because, I mean, I think there's like... With prequels, you have to show the passage of time. I mean, it kind of just reminds me of like, there's like these cosmetic differences where like you can kind of see where it's going, but it's not quite what you remember. Like C-3PO and Phantom Menace. Like the fact that he's gray and exposed wires, he looks nothing like the C-3PO, but you can anticipate that he will. It's like, it doesn't have to look exactly the same when you go into it.
Not exactly, but if Joel Schumacher made House of the Dragons, you'd be out.
I mean, probably.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, no matter, even if it was Benioff and Weiss, they were like, we just want this one to look wacky. You'd be like, eh. And I think this Lord of the Rings suffers some of that because I need to do a rewatch of the original Lord of the Rings again, just to see just how visually, even though this TV show looks incredible, and it's in higher def and all that stuff, I think from memory that the Lord of the Rings trilogy is... I like the style, the aesthetic better.
Yeah.
From like how the elves looked, how, the camera tricks they pulled. Now, a lot of that's from Hobbit perspective, so I get that some of that stuff is is that way and this one isn't.
Well, they did some of that too in the first episode for sure. A lot of
Yeah,
the
but
forced perspective and stuff.
the ears on the elves bother me. They have fatter ears in this than they had. What a stupid thing to get hung up on.
I was gonna say I can't help you with this one.
But I mentioned it to my wife. We're watching, and I'm like, their ears just don't look right. And the actor, the young Ned Stark, Elrond, his face is just uncanny valley. And it might be one of those things like Paul Dano where I just don't like his face. His chin, I don't know if he has an underbite, and I'm saying this as a 300-pound plus man
That's right.
criticizing another person's body.
That's right.
But yeah, it just the ears look off. Okay, ears look off to me.
I'm sorry to hear that.
That's like watching Miss America and going, her nose is too big.
Yeah. As you've got like laced potato chip crumbs on your shirt.
That's right. Yes. So, yeah, and I did a bang bang for lunch, if you know what that is.
No.
I got fried rice from the Chinese place and fried chicken from Lee's.
Oh my God.
Fried rice was my side, and the chicken from Lee's was. I didn't get sides with my chicken. I just got the chicken, and I wanted fried rice with it.
That's fantastic.
So there you go. You're welcome.
And I love that. I was gonna say I love that. That's the pin on the Lord of the Rings review.
And you know what? My lunch was far more interesting than what I've seen so far. Now, you went and watched a movie that I've heard about, that I saw an ad for, that maybe was the worst poster I've ever seen for a movie. And it was a luggage case that had a cage with a hand reaching out of the cage. But the movie isn't called like Vacation. It's not called like Travel or Baggage. It's called Barbarian.
Yeah.
And so tell me, Ryan Snelling, about this movie.
So Barbarian, even though I have no idea what imagery you're talking about, because the poster I know of is just the bright red and the girlie's looking through the door frame, it's an amazing poster. I love that poster. This movie, you kind of spoke to it. It's a mystery box of a movie. Which
okay, like Cabin in the Woods.
Kind of.
Okay.
The movie that it reminds me of a lot is Don't Breathe. Which is probably why I like it. I don't want to tell you why. It also reminds me of X, which came out earlier this year a little bit.
Can't wait to see that movie.
I think those comparisons are spot on. But it's a mystery box of a movie because it's episodic in a way where it'll step away from the previous story it set up to set up another story, and there's a opportunity there at the end to kind of bring everything together, and it kind of explodes in a certain way, and I really liked it.
Okay.
But at the same time, this isn't like a Don't Breathe situation where like I really like the concept. I just thought Don't Breathe like balled out the entire time, and I had so much fun. This is definitely a great theatrical experience for anybody who's wondering, because you're just so involved, constantly wondering where this is going to go, and it changes things, it zigs, it zags, and it's very involving and fun and keeps you guessing, and it goes crazy and wild. And so for all those reasons, it's a great horror movie to watch in a theater. Not that you're going to go out and watch this in a theater, but
that's right.
It's one of those movies that you always have fun watching for the very first time. Now, the setup is Georgina Campbell, I believe is this actress's name, who I was unfamiliar with up until this point. The trailer sets it up wonderfully. She goes to an Airbnb and finds that Bill Skarsgård is already squatting at this Airbnb, and she got the thing mixed up or whatever. And so you think, when you watch the trailer especially, you think that this is what this entire movie is going to be. You think it's just going to be her and Bill Skarsgård constantly trying to figure out, and it could have been. Like, there's definitely a movie just with that premise. Is this person safe? Is Bill Skarsgård playing somebody that isn't letting on who he is entirely? Like, all these questions, and you realize that's kind of just like one of three parts of the movie. And another thing that I noticed, like from the trailer and from some of the promotional stuff, is like Justin Long is in it. So I'm like constantly like, how does Justin Long factor into this? Lead going into the movie, and because the movie doesn't let on that it's episodic, so it's a completely different aspect and dynamic that I didn't know was coming, and it was kind of like Lyndall Lothian in a way, the way that he tells the way that he tells the narrative, and so that was a lot of fun. And so yeah, the way basically what this trailer sets up, it is just one of a few aspects of the movie. So yeah, it's one of those things where like I didn't come away with it thinking that it was the greatest horror movie of the year or one of my favorite horror movies of all time, but it is 100% just such a fun movie to go with.
Does it have rewatch appeal?
I think there's a to me, it kind of feels like it's something that you definitely would enjoy watching with other people.
Okay.
So it's like, would I just sit down and re-watch this? Probably not. But if the opportunity arose where like one or two people hadn't seen it and you wanted to watch it with them to see their reaction, like it has to be that aspect. Like you can watch people watch it. Like I think that works. Yeah, that's really great. But I don't think I would just want to rewatch this the way that I want to rewatch Saving Private Ryan. I mean,
okay,
it's not like it's not a movie that I think will stay with me for years or anything like that. But it is a fun sort of like party movie, if that makes sense.
Is this movie better than Hardcore Henry?
Yeah.
Is this movie better than what's the name of it? What was that movie? Was it Overlord?
Overlord I've rewatched several times, so I would say I would definitely understand if somebody liked that more than Overlord, for sure. But
okay.
It's just when it comes to my taste, Overlord is more my thing. But
gotcha.
I mean, I wouldn't have any problem in admitting Barbarian. Yeah, but maybe better than Overlord. Yeah.
Would you rather watch Barbarian or episode 1 of The Rings of Power again?
Barbarian.
Okay.
It's so fun. Yeah, it's so fun.
Love it.
Like when we find out that it's out on home video, I'm going to push you to watch it. It's great.
Well, when you get it on Vudu, I will watch it.
I will not get it on Vudu. You can rent it on Vudu, but I won't own it.
Hold on. Don't go out and buy the Power Book or the Metal Book.
The Power Book.
The Blu-ray, 4K, whatever.
Okay.
Of this movie.
I have no intention of ever owning this movie in any way.
Do you own Overlord?
On Vudu.
So you would buy Overlord on Vudu, but you won't buy this on Vudu.
I literally just told you Overlord is more my thing.
But then you just said, yeah, this movie might be better than Overlord.
Well, because then it comes down to the subjectivity. Like, if someone said to me, I like Barbarian more than Overlord, I wouldn't, like, object to it. I would get it. Because I can see why it fits in line with someone's taste more.
Would you get it if someone said, I like this movie better than, I don't know, M. Brooks or whatever that Colin Farrell movie was?
No.
Okay. Okay, good. Good to know.
Yeah. So, it's not like it's definitely a fun horror movie, but it's not like I walked away excited about it the way that I like love Green Room or Don't Breathe or some of these like unsuspecting horror movies that have kind of popped up over the years that I've just really attached myself to.
Sing Street.
So anyway, yeah, there's a lot of, like I said, there's a lot of fun twists and turns that kind of keep you guessing, and there's a couple things that I have questions with it, and I kind of just can't let certain things in horror movies go, where I'm like, you're asking a lot of me to buy into this one particular thing, and like, not to spoil anything, but it's like, just how is this person not dead yet kind of stuff.
Sure.
That like happens in every movie, but
like in Gravity with Sandra Bullock.
Maybe. Even though Gravity, I would say, is probably better. But
No. It's the one chance Space had to take Sandra Bullock. And instead they took George Clooney.
yeah. But anyway, so at the risk of running long, that's kind of all I've got. Because this is a movie that, like, one false move and you spoil it. And I'm trying to preserve as much of this movie as possible, so I can't really say anymore. So that's it.
Awesome.
I would say if somebody's listening or watching this podcast and you're wondering whether you should go check this out or something else, definitely see Barbarian in theaters and definitely see it with people.
Okay.
There you go.
Solid.
Yeah. All right. I don't really have anything else.
No. That's enough Ryan Snelling for a day.
I agree. And I've still got 12
Perfect.
hours with myself.
That's right. Yeah.
So let's see what we got going on next week. So how do you feel about covering Rings of Power next week?
We have to.
You think so?
Yeah.
I don't think we have to do anything.
We've started it. Let's finish it.
So next week, are you a Kevin Smith fan?
Yeah. Some of it.
Are you excited to see Clerks 3? It comes out next week.
Does it really?
Yeah, and
What's it come out on?
well, I think it's coming out in theaters because it well, I don't know. That's what's weird about this movie is I saw the trailer when it came out, and it's like, okay, it's out in theaters on Tuesday, so I'll probably see it on Tuesday. But I mean, the rollout of this movie has been silent.
Yeah. I was
For
about
me.
to say Clerks 2, it was a fluke and magic that movie worked. Magic.
Jay and Silent Bob reboot, the one that came out a couple years ago before the
Never
pandemic.
saw it.
I mean, I saw that in theaters, and it just seemed like it was a much bigger deal than this one is. So I don't know why. I mean, this is kind of quiet. It's coming out quietly. But next week we have The Woman King, which I believe is John Boyega, and also most notably, wow, I just completely blanked on her name. She plays Amanda Waller in the DC universe. Viola Davis. Thank you, God. So I'm
How
excited.
dare you.
The Woman King, Viola Davis. I'm really excited to see this movie.
Cool.
So that's what I'll be talking about next week. But yeah, all right, man. I guess we'll meet back up this time next week.
All right.
I guess we got to talk Lord of the Rings.
Yeah. Tell
All
Stu
right.
I said what's up.
All right. Where can the people find you online?
You can find me online on Instagram at Brando Big Mouth.
You can find me Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, TikTok, at Rewatch Ryan. And I think I'm going to save the announcement for next week, actually. I was going to announce something, but I'm going to announce the announcement instead. And we'll talk about it next week. All right, guys. See you on the next one. Is that your stomach?